That's very good. Okay, I think we can get started a little bit. We five to two, so we can wait a little bit longer for a couple ones. But maybe why don't you also, David, kind of introduce yourself, and then Ian, very briefly, and I'll keep an eye on any people in the waiting room, and then we'll get started at two for sure. But we're recorded now.
Sounds great. Yeah, wonderful. It's good to see you again, Don, and
For
thanks
sure.
for having us. And it's a privilege to connect with you as well, Scott. Should I give my should I just give a real brief one now and
Yeah,
wait
for
till we
sure.
start?
Yeah, give me kind of a warm up. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, yeah, David Jones, and I've been with BGI for quite a while. Been involved with development 24 years now,
Mm,
and involved with most areas of the process and focus a lot on sourcing new sites and
mm.
municipal approvals. Um, Working with the family company, it's allowed me to also be involved with a bit of ministry as a parallel, which I'll highlight once we get going there. And
Yep.
yeah, just really excited to and encouraged to see some of the doors that the Lord appears to be opening up here, and happy to connect with you today because from as I'll mention a little bit in the
Yep.
future. What I have read out of Oak Study Center there and from you, Don, I can
Yep.
certainly affirm what you're saying, and it's been quite sobering to see a lot of the changes for a long
Yeah.
time now, but more
Great.
rapidly over the last few years. So
Yeah, for sure. And in the education, I appreciate that. And we
absolutely.
try and get speakers in that have, certainly had experience addressing a wide range of issues in the culture, particularly in bringing Christian faith to bear on that. But I think, and this uh, really was going outside the box a bit, just in terms of. I think there certainly are a number of people here in Hamilton that will benefit from this, and if it's via recording, that's fine. But I think Scott Innes is extremely well positioned as having been concerned with the housing situation in Hamilton to come up with ideas, referenced a couple times, compassionate capitalism, but innovative ways of really meeting those needs that do address some very basic aspects that just the need to have maintain community and have a sense of place, I think, and it's certainly in Hamilton. I don't know. I don't think Ian or David, you've had much work in Hamilton in that there just hasn't been the opportunities here. Is that correct? There hasn't really been.
Well, it's correct. And also, one of the main reasons is the length of time that Hamilton takes to do municipal approvals. It's disgusting, frankly.
Yes.
So we are in places, which I'll touch on later,
Yeah.
where they're basically rolling out the red carpet, and the reason for that isn't because we smile to them, it's because of the dire need for affordable housing.
Yeah.
And this model very much answers a large portion of that for 25% of the
Oh,
population, basically.
indeed. Well, here's a good friend, Christian Carlson Tees from Washington, D.C. So welcome, Christian. Just getting connected. And yeah, we have a Bible study with Christian and her husband Stanley every month via Zoom.
Oh,
We
great.
call it the Toronto Bible Study, but we're in Hamilton, there, Washington, but we met in Toronto. And as soon as I get Christian connected, I think I'll open it. We are being recorded. And I think then, Ian, you can give a little bit of your background, I guess, and particularly the whole thing of what you talk about, a personal catalyst that really led to your vision for the whole BGI joy concept. And and just walk us through, share kind of your experience, your passion, your vision, and what you've accomplished was quite remarkable. And then also, David, as you've come on board and worked side by side with your father, and I think that bodes well for the future of BGI as you've got the succession right in place. And certainly, it's evident that your Christian faith has really shaped the ethics, the ethos of your company, and that has made a real difference. So I think with that, and there may be some others will drop in. A couple mentioned they might make it, but they weren't sure. I'll keep an eye on them. But if I can turn over to you, Ian, perhaps and just have you share how you got to be where you are here now and what have been the underlying, really, um, passions that you've had about really meeting the needs of people, particularly dealing with the more aging boomer generation, but more generally, and how that fits into a model that really builds community and utilizes rather than utilizes all the experience and talents of the older population in ways that are quite, I think, innovative. So, pleasure to have you. This is being recorded, so we'll be able to share this more widely. So, Ian, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll keep an eye on our guest coming in.
Thank you, sir. As always, is Christian, she seems to be joined, or is it he? They seem to be joined already.
Yep.
So hopefully they can hear and
Yeah, Christian, if you can hear or can't hear, let me know. But I see you on the screen. Okay.
okay. I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions, and if you send out the recording to anybody, if they have questions, I'll,
Yep,
you can include my email address and I'll
for sure.
address them after the fact. I came to Toronto with family from Glasgow, Scotland in 1960 and went to school in
Heavy
Scarborough
accent.
for, hello? Hello?
Oh, is that you, Christian? Are you on there?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, good. Okay. Welcome.
Okay.
Thanks. Very
So,
august group. Okay.
okay. So, as I say, I went to school in Scarborough for 3 years and scraped through grade 12. I immediately, I couldn't afford to go to university because I had to look after my mother. And I went about 2 weeks later to work for McNamara Construction, who is one of Toronto large general contractors who was doing the below grade east-west subway, at Bloor East.
Right.
And I delivered the mail to the projects. And about a month after that, when I got to know the managers, I approached one of them in the estimating department and I asked if I could transfer in there. And they said, sure, on one condition. You take the courses, and if you pass them and stay with us for a year, we'll pay for them. So I jumped at that chance, and that turned into 4 years, 4 nights a week at Ryerson and George Brown to become a chartered quantity surveyor. That's a British profession, but all the banks use quantity surveyors to monitor the construction loans, large and small, etc.
Right.
So I then went to work for Foundation Company in the estimating, and they built the CN Tower in Toronto.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, 73 or 4.
70, yeah. Yeah.
And I worked for the Toronto architects that were the architects of Toronto General Hospital and St. Mike's Hospital. And then in 72, I think it was, or thereabouts, a construction management company in Montreal who built Place Ville-Marie. He opened a Toronto office and hired me as their contracts manager to do all the trade contracts, etc., and keep them in line. So about 17 years of all of that. The way I put it is I woke up one morning and said, well, that's what a developer does. So I formed my development company in 1980 and was developing ever since. We did 5-star hotels, even pharmaceutical labs, and a whole range of things, libraries. And it was about 8 years ago, my elder brother, Gary, who looked after the on-site construction end, he had to have a quadruple bypass, and his doctor and wife figured they should be in a retirement home. His mind was as clear as a bell, but that was their decision. I had nothing to say about that, and that was fine. So it took 9 months lying in a hospital bed to get a room, if you like. And I scratched my head. I couldn't figure out why it was taking so long, but the dirty little secret was the provincial government wasn't building any nursing homes. They were parking everybody in hospital wings, at whatever it was, 3,000 a month, so he lasted about a year in there, and he got the bed in Brantford, and visited them there every week. David came sometimes, and every time I went in the front door, there was these seniors in chairs and wheelchairs, sitting, looking at the floor. When I left an hour later, same seniors looking at the same floor. So I shook my head every time and said there must be a better way. So he died about 12 months after getting in there. And the day I left, as I was walking out, I says, Lord, you blessed me with over 50 years in this business. I'm going to do something about it with your help, and then just put pen to paper, and I honestly believe it was the Holy Spirit, guiding me, to bringing back a lot of the experience that I'd have, in the prior decades. And because I wanted to make sure it was something that addressed what I'd seen. But it could not be, a care model, because the numbers don't work. So as a chartered quantity surveyor, I had to have a perfect balance of aesthetics, economy, market appeal, and work, and be financeable. So about a month later, after doodling with all of that, out came the answer that I dubbed the joy concept, because the reason behind it had to be advancing the Great Commission and trying to make joy available to anybody that lived in these buildings, real joy, and the bottom line is we don't need these buildings, we don't want them, but we know how to develop them, and we know how to build them, we know how to finance them, etc., etc. So we were about to release it to, and when I say the market, not the general public market, our model was to approach churches who had excess land, and and wanted to, they had the heart to produce affordable housing. So our model is based on initially doing a contract with a church, and taking it through the zoning approvals for the Joy model, which is a 5 to 9 story building, 150 to 200 residents, and the financing structured through CMHC and our own equity into the project to create 100% financing, so the churches did not have to come up with any of that. But at the end of the day, when it was built, filled, and stabilized, and we brought in a national property management company to guarantee the occupancy at 90%, that undergirded the church lack of financing for taking it through the rest of the way, after we turned the building over in a year or two after completion. So that's the sort of big description of the model. David can fill in some of the details in a minute, but we were going to introduce it and then COVID happened. So we pulled it back because that end of the market, the demographic, a lot of them were dying, in nursing homes, etc. So you just don't do that as a development, and you don't get a second chance, So we pulled it back, and when COVID was over, we were starting to get ready to approach the churches, and nothing happened in all of 22. I prayed for the Lord to open the doors if He wanted this to happen, and nothing happened. So it was another one of those, wilderness experiences, But then in 23, 24, 10 churches in different provinces signed up. and they're all in various positions of planning approvals, etc., etc. You know, and obviously what people say, well, you haven't done any yet. Well, the answer to that is yes, we have, you know, because our Dayspring project in Brampton has got 10 buildings on it, and it was the first and largest adult lifestyle community in Toronto, and 700 condominiums, etc., etc. You can touch on that later on. But the bottom line is that is a joy project, except for one thing. They were all condominium, and the individual owners gained, you know, 3 and 4 times the value of their units, whereas joy, they're not condo, they're purpose-built rental, which is the flavor of the month that, you know, the government's looking for. Thank you, Lord. And, you know, so that's the big difference. So, you know, when you look at the Dayspring project in Brampton, you're looking at a joy project, basically. So I'll take a breath there, and maybe
Sure.
David, you
Yeah.
can sort of fill in some of the gaps, unless Don, you want to.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I just wondered, I do have screen share, so if you have a PowerPoint and you show some of the
Sure.
properties, you certainly are welcome to do that. That's very instructive as well.
You want that now?
Perhaps, yeah, give people a feel for it, and then David, you can pick up and share how you've come in and what your vision really is of the future. Yeah, so if you've got the PowerPoint for, there we go.
Okay, so you know, so basically, this is the very initial joy intro, you know, that we send out to churches with some background on BGI, etc., etc. Because we've done a lot of large scale projects in the past. So this is just to, you know, briefly say what the problem is. You know, we call it a joy concept, etc. And, you know, it's by BGI Group. That's, you know, we've got about 4 designs, and we're making them, you know, all like cookie cutters almost. We've really refined the layouts, the unit mix, the sizes, the quality, all of that.
Right.
You know, so when a church comes up, we can plonk one of these on the site to see if it works physically, etc. So that's our 9-story model. And one of the other main benefits of this model is that we can absorb up to 20,000 square feet of new church / community hub in the project and make the financing work. So a church, if they've got an old church and the congregation is 400, you know, and it's not heritage, etc., we can demolish that church and give them a new 20,000 square foot church of 750 seats, plus all the, you know, the youth areas, etc., etc.
Within the facility, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, so, and there's the problem, you know, is the size of it. It's a bottomless market, really. There's 8 million boomers in Canada and 80 million in the US. They pay, don't forget, this is not regular seniors apartments. It's not a care model, nursing home or retirement home. It's independent living, which a lot of boomers would rather have, you know, because they can still take care. I'm in the leading edge of the boomers, and no way would I go into retirement home, right? So you know, but those current independent living are 5,000 to 7,000 a month. You know, so we've designed these like boutique style wellness residencies from 1,300 a month in Canada. And incidentally, we're now talking to the housing department in Columbus, Ohio. They reached out to us, and they really like the model. So, you know, we've identified 7 churches in Columbus that could, you know, accommodate a joy model. So that may be our beachhead to take this model into the US. We were active in the US from 2004 to 2008, so we know how it works there. You know?
Right.
You know, and it's the turnkey, as I mentioned. The church gets 100% ownership, and the cash flow. You can touch on that in a sec, David, because the project's for 2 reasons: provide affordable housing and enable community outreach. So, and there's the genesis. There's the one in Brampton. You know, it was three 10-acre parcels for one house on each 10 acres. We rezoned it to 700 condos, 160-bed long-term care, church, and some retail. In this parking lot area here, we've got it in at the City of Brampton for 649 affordable rental units in 4 towers. And we're not building it. It's not a joy model. We said to the board, we'll do all of this. And when it's the zoning is through and it's got about 20% left to go, we'll put it on the market. And the sale of that land with the approvals will build the last stage of the church of 1,000-seat sanctuary and leave it debt free. So that's that. Then that
Amazing.
project will be done. There's some others. That's that same thing. That's a typical. We try and include a clinic and a pharmacy. The hub, we call it. It's got 750 seats and all the other, and the entrance to the residential and the elevators, etc. We do all the initial designs ourselves, and take it through the zoning for density and height and all that. And then when it gets starts to get close to the building permit, we retain a local registered architect, to produce the working drawings, because we're not allowed, but we tell the architect, here's what we want to do, so make it better, do what we're giving you. 40% of the building falls under CMHC's affordable rates, and that 40% is furnished. So people, if they want a furnished unit, they can. This is what it looks like. Our interior designer does it, and only protections against future COVID. And that's just some of the projects that we've built and developed. And that's our team. We've got a team of experts, that would be involved in each Joy project, and we overview the whole thing, being the developers. And that's the current contracts that we have. That totals 4,000 units. This is a sort of typical size, 200 to 400 units per site. And the community hub, we've just laid out all of these uses that could be out of the community hub. That's up to the church at 100%. We just say to them, this is what you could use that for, in addition to, your services. And that's it. Basically, we've registered the copyrights for this entire thing in Canada and the US.
In US, yeah.
So that's that.
No, it's very amazing. And we'll get back to it just in terms of how the church kind of connects with you and gets that process started.
Yes.
But David, maybe just over to you in terms of how you've kind of got involved in and really your vision for the future with BGI and the Joy concept.
When I'm not around.
Yeah, yeah, you'll be in a unit somewhere, Well, enjoy.
Well, I can say that the focus and the motive behind it all, won't be changing from what I can certainly see. I definitely see the need for many churches to just have the resources and capacity to keep doing whatever local mission they want to be doing, and many really don't have it. The budget sheets are tight, and I'll just briefly highlight that's a couple of the things that's really setting this model apart. And
sorry, David, before you go into that, mention Brian, because regarding
Brian Beattie,
community, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're as you know, Don, aligned with Brian Beattie, who is a pastor from Brantford, knows loads of pastors around Canada and beyond. So we're happy to be aligned with him. He does a lot of the initial reaching out to churches, but part of what he really brings to the picture is an optional add-on for any churches that really want some extra guidance, some facilitation and resourcing to be able to do what Brian and his team coins as city transformation. They're really experienced with that. There's a lot of documentation about what happened in Brantford from these initiatives. It's called City Group, his company.
I'll share that link with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as a lot of the potential of what can happen out of those community hubs with the church and the capital for it, Brian really complements a lot of that and can just really take it to the next level in terms of community outreach and city transformation. So
no, absolutely. Yeah, Brian's been helping us with City Vision Hamilton here as well, and getting a group together with churches. Haven't got yet to a stage where we can engage with you, but I think that's definitely a next or a necessary step at some point.
So the benefits, David, if you don't mind.
yeah, a lot of what sets this model apart, whereas other developers are primarily building for, let's say their own internal portfolio or to, their exit strategies to sell the completed project to a hedge fund or a REIT.
Right.
I'd say the only real objection or question, I should call it, we come up against is, it seems too good to be true. Where's the catch? And as my dad said, we don't need these buildings. We don't want them. We know how to develop them, and we know the net cash flow that they can produce for the
We've
right
got them up.
groups. And a lot of the reasoning, as well as putting this property manager in place through an agreement in principle right now, is they will get 25% of the net cash flow. The end owner, the church, gets the other 75%. And for that 25%, the property manager guarantees the occupancy. So the church now doesn't have to worry or assume the risk of leasing up the place, keeping it full, dealing with tenant headaches and the day-to-day issues of a residential project. They can just focus on, their mission and focus. Also, whatever lender will be providing the permanent financing and that will come and take out the construction loan, they want to see an experienced operator in place that's going to be running this building, ensuring its occupancy, and therefore the cash flow coming in and servicing the debt. So it really answers that. Some of the benefits, in addition to the 75% of the net cash flow that the church gets, they are 100% owner of this building. So the equity buildup over time in this cash flowing project, 100% goes to the church. So there's a lot of areas where, it really sets this model apart. It is a philanthropic structure. And there's a lot of ways that for the right church groups, we're not trying to say this is a one size fits all, it's right for everybody. We want it to be, frankly, part of God's will for their journey and their story. And, there's a long process that gives ample opportunity for any, closed doors should it not be God's will. But the ones that are all moving forward, which you saw many on the list there, we're very encouraged by and excited to see where it's heading. Some have just been approved for some initial seed funding through CMHC. So that's another big vote of confidence for anyone we're engaging with and step in the right direction. So,
and just to add to that, a 6-story building produces about 700,000 a year to the church in net cash flow after all expenses and mortgage, etc. And a 9-story building produces about $1 million a year to the church, and that's after the property management company gets their 25%.
So there's a few ingredients that is a bit, outside of the box, but it certainly helps close the gap that in the the capital stack to finance everything that the church, in most cases, if not all, would normally fall short on, and definitely on the operating experience of the multifamily project that the lenders will want to see. It helps closes the gap on that as well.
And it's our equity, etc., that's left in that allows that to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Second mortgage.
Yeah. You can highlight how we leave that untitled if you want, Dad.
Okay. Yeah, like when the project is up and complete, there is profit, developer profit, but we're doing this on a not-for-profit basis. You know, for 40 years, BGI was a for-profit developer. Well, all of the Joy models are done under a not-for-profit model. So we have to reuse those funds, obviously. So the profit that the project makes and the equity that we put into the project, we leave that on title as a second mortgage for 10 years at zero interest and zero principal payments. So it does not affect CMHC's debt service cover of the first mortgage, etc. And if the church would be buying this finished building, and CMHC puts up 75% a permanent mortgage loan to value, the church would have to come up with that other 25%, you know, which very, very few churches would be able to do. Well, that's where we come in, and that's our equity that we put into the project and the profit that it makes. And it sits on title, and we've got one condition: we can leverage that second mortgage to create equity for the next Joy project, and on and on and on. And that's how it's, you know, replicable. So
Able to borrow against it to leverage for the next project.
right.
That's very interesting. Question regarding the churches. Is there a typical, if you will, profile of churches who have really been able to take advantage of this? Or, I mean, I think you're looking for vibrant, growing churches that are based in solid biblical teaching and all of that.
Well, new pastors, you know, and I don't like to generalize, but, you know, the new generation of partners seem to be more business minded, you know, to help make the church financially secure and be able to do all the outreach of the Great Commission, etc. So, you know, we find that those pastors who may not have had 30 years of experience, but, you know, the experience they've got now of maybe 10 years or whatever, you know, they're very open to at least exploring this model, you know, and because we're, you know, bringing 100%, you know, of the construction loan and our equity into it, and the church doesn't have to, you know, it takes away a giant roadblock, you know, that churches have. So, you know, beyond that openness to explore it, obviously, Brian, you know, I like to say, I think he knows every Pentecostal pastor in Canada, you know, but, you know, so a good amount of the contracts we have are with Pentecostal churches.
Yeah.
There's also Baptists in there, you know, that are completely open to it. And we're talking to a Lutheran one also. We obviously have a line in the sand. We're not going to produce these for, you know, like a denomination that's not, you know, seeking the Great Commission. You know, and there is some obvious judgment there, but we won't do it on the record for Jehovah Witness facilities or Mormon, or you know, can't remember the other ones, but we do have a line in the sand, you know.
Right. There's a basic,
And we come from Pentecostal. I've been born again Pentecostal since '82. So I'd like to think we know what it is the Lord wants.
you got. And
Certainly.
you got a very extensive network. Scott, any thoughts at this point? I know you've been kind of wrapping your head around a lot of these issues.
I guess the one size is quite practical. What sort of lot size are you looking at to make this real?
Well, ideally, there would be 5 acres with the church using 2 and 3 spare. But if it goes above that, because we're speaking to a couple of them right now that have 20 acres, and we can do a master plan that would allow the project to be done again. You know, if they only need 2 or 3 of that, we will do a master plan and show maybe 4 phases that project would unfold over 10, 12 years or whatever.
Okay. And typically, what's your construction cost per square foot? I know you haven't got these in motion yet, but I'm wondering what you're budgeting for your construction cost.
Yeah, that's in-house. You know, we don't get into that because we guarantee the cost. You know, so however we do it, you know, we're looking at 5 different construction systems right now. You know, like modular, CFS, ICF, and total precast. So, it'll depend on what we finally choose. We've got about 6 months to make that decision, of which we'd use. And the tariffs for the steel and everything come into all of that. So I'm not evading your question, but I'm avoiding it.
Well, that's cool. Another question, are you building these as passive house style, or are you actually
For
meeting,
sure.
but
For
or
sure.
are you meeting the passive house standards?
Well, it'll be passive house. It'll pass the passive house standards, with the air test and everything that it has to go through. So, they will have the triple glazing and the beefed up insulation, etc. I'm not an engineer, but, like I have said, these will be passive house, because it reduces the utility bills by about 80%, and
Easy.
we've had that on our preliminary specs for 5 years before COVID, that these will be, because the future owners, that reduction in the utility bills increases the value of the building.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by that, quite frankly,
Okay.
because achieving passive house means you've got a significant southern exposure to the winter sun, and of course, in a large building, you've got units facing every which way,
Right.
and so it's you can't have everything facing south, and indeed what you showed units facing in many directions.
Right. Right.
I don't understand how you can meet passive house standards when you've got a north-facing unit, for example.
Well, that's I can't answer that, because, as I say, I'm not an environmental engineer or an architect. So we've got that on the list that we put that on the table with any of the design consultants. We want this to be built to passive house standards, and they'll specifically tell us. We're not changing the building, heights and orientation and everything. If the utility savings are only 60% instead of 80%, that's what governs. It's more important that these get delivered at affordable rents. So the intention is to have the full passive house standards. We read up, or I read up on 5 years ago, the ones that have been done in Europe. And I know it's ideal, but nobody's going to build a linear building here just facing one way.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
So I think it's fair to say that these are constructed to a passive house construction standard, but not necessarily to be independent of heating.
Well, I'll leave the answer to that to better than me.
Okay, I've done a bit of research into passive house, and I've talked to a couple of passive house builders, single family home builders.
Yeah.
And they had very specific comments about south facing and about the percentage of the windows to the square footage of the units and so on. So
no, I've seen all that, and that's why like we've got French balconies, but they're interior French balconies, so there's no penetration through the exterior wall, for the dew point and and all of that. So we're sort of part way there, but these are only schematic drawings at this point for municipal approvals. It's once we get into site plan approval and pre-building permit, that the registered architects, etc., will be doing that exactly and given to us for approval.
Well, thank you, sir. I don't mean to be difficult, but I guess
No.
as an engineer, I'm used to dealing in nuts and bolts.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, good. Yeah. And
I know my limit.
Yeah, we bring a lot of experience to bear on that. Christian Stanley, welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Down in Washington.
I come at this from the religious freedom angle.
Okay.
In the United States, where there's also a lot of interest in helping churches to develop affordable housing of different kinds for the sake of housing, not so much for the sake of the church. But I've seen some plans to draw this together. So I really like what you're proposing here. Would a zoning authority or lender say, in Canada, church membership's really declining. This is a project that's going to have to last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. How can we trust that anchor entity is going to still be there, 30 years from now, if the trends of church attendance are dropping?
Yeah, I think, from what we follow, and you only need to
Mm.
look at the Memorial on Sunday,
Yeah.
the whole evangelical movement, is generally increasing, and there will be, an increase of that as a result of, unfortunately, what I am, so yes, there is a big decline, on the traditional old type church, with the old type preaching, etc. But that isn't generally the new pastor creed, creed that's coming along. They want the whole business thing in there, but still honor the Lord for God's glory and the Great Commission. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah. So I suppose you could say, yeah, the churches that don't want to do outreach are the ones that are declining. The
Right.
ones that do want to do outreach will still be there and doing this. But that raises the other question I wanted to ask, whether or not any municipal zoning authorities would say, we want more affordable housing for retirees and so on, but we don't like to help the church carry out its mission. So we don't want to grant zoning approval. I mean, that we've run into that kind of problem in the United States with, mega churches that some cities don't want to approve of them. They say it's because it takes real estate off the tax rolls, but there's a great suspicion that it's for other reasons. Like they don't like to encourage those kinds of people to, have a place in society. So is that a concern?
But the simple answer is no, because we test that early on, like as for every project in Canada, and I'm sure we would do it in the US, it's called a pre-consultation. We do an initial, master plan, showing the density, etc., of what's being proposed. And that's a very, very simple project to get the feedback from local councils, etc. And if they're throwing up a wall that you'll never get this approved, we'll go on to the next one. Every community in Canada and the US at 20,000 and above will support one Joy building, at least one Joy building. And there's 80 million boomers in the US. So
In the
it
US.
honestly doesn't bother me in the least.
And
Yeah.
we've all noticed it quite evident that there can be a bit of a bias towards, the Christian worldview in that, but and we're dealing with multiple municipal planning departments now, at least here in Canada, and none of that has come to the surface in any tangible way. And if it did, they really would be jeopardizing their own roles because it goes against our Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. It would be discriminatory on their part, to, I guess, voice any of that, even if any, their personal convictions.
Yeah, we flushed that out long before a shovel goes in the ground. And again, there's such a demand for this product, this model. If there's that much resistance, life's too short. We'll go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, if I could just very quickly just touch on
David.
the last point too, and all of us on this call, we would love if every CMHC rep, every bank lender rep was a Christian. Sadly, they're not, and they may hear the odd headline, but many of them are not spending their time reading through, Barna Group studies and Pew research to really be analyzing the decline in certain areas of the evangelical church world. So, could that be raised as a concern for the future outlook of a church-run project by the odd underwriter? It could be, but not something that we've seen yet.
The big thrust of these is supplying affordable housing and supplying a community hub. The community hub doubles as a church space because it has 700 odd seats. But the whole thrust of it, 90% if you like, is the affordable housing and for the local community.
Yeah.
So so if I'm understanding this correctly, it is really specifically aimed at the older population. So this is not just affordable housing for families and it is specifically aimed at an older population. Am I correct about that?
You're correct, and and initially we had mentioned this is it's not a seniors apartment building, it's not a retirement home, and it's not a nursing home. It's the independent living model.
Right.
It's designed for 55 plus. When I say designed for in Canada, you cannot restrict it to. I know you can in the US. So it has to be to whosoever will. I mean, so yeah.
And then the other question I had was, when I'm thinking about housing of this nature, there are usually like you have to meet certain, not just age, but also income qualifications. Like, can you be too wealthy to get one of these, or can you be too poor? I mean, who determines that piece of it? The qualifications to be able to apply for a place here.
Okay, well, again, I'm not currently familiar with the U.S. requirements of the Fair Housing Act or whatever it is. We have to, you dig further into that. But with the independent living, what's out there right now is, 4,000 to 5,000 a month generally.
That's
And this model is from 1,300 a month. Our one bedroom is, I think, 2,000. And the market is about 5,000. Our two bedroom is 3,000, and the market is 6,000 to 7,000. Now I know that sounds like a lot of money, but that's the independent living model. Again, if you say, well, seniors apartments are only 800 a month, that's not what this model is. So it's a case of it's dealing with that market, but the independent living market is basically the boomer market. And, if the church wants to try and either limit who goes in there, which I think would be fraught with all sorts of legal peril, or with the proceeds that the church gets out of it, they can subsidize the units even further. Because they're getting 700,000 or 800,000 a year that they have to put somewhere as a charity,
Right.
So they can put a couple of 100,000 of that into subsidizing lower rates. We need those rates that I described to get the building finance, but then it's up to the church.
Is there, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Sorry, if the church also identifies a local need and say, we want to, block off 10 units on this wing of the project to have for, single moms that are fleeing a, domestic abuse or anything like that, they can absolutely subsidize those units and cover the.
Yeah, and we've designed that. One of the churches has asked for that specifically. So we've designed 15 units on the ground floor that are directly accessible out of the outside, so that they don't the security of the building isn't compromised.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, very innovative.
wow.
Your Christian Stanley, your church and your kind of community, does this kind of thinking have some potential there, or are you?
Well, I think we have the property for it, but I don't think there's any vision for it at the moment. But
it's never been presented or thought about.
No,
nobody thought about it. I have a friend though who works, a pastor who's worked in real estate and with cities, and their church developed something like this, kind of on their own, and built it was a senior living. I'm not sure exactly how it would fit in this model, but they cross subsidized so that they could help poor families get in, but it raises a lot of money for the church budget. It's allowed them to do many other things, including childcare for other families and so on.
Yeah, the potential is immense, and daycare, I mean, education, kind of various, that community space can be used in a lot of ways. It creates a community hub, as you say.
Don, our heart. We've said that because the proceeds that BGI gets out of it, we're open to, including educational components in some of these projects. Have a larger area, so.
Yeah, I think
as long as it falls within that advancement of the Great Commission, we'll listen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, Brian Beatty in Brantford is certainly a key person up here. And I probably should introduce you to him, Scott, as well. Um, and he's certainly really attuned to the network, and his whole group, Kingdomize Global, is really developing kind of business models for Christian entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, Brian takes over when we're finished, basically.
Yeah.
We bring him on site about 6 months before the paint dries. Starting to put these programs together for that specific church if they want, but we include that anyway, just in case they want to do it.
Yeah.
And then the contract that we sign with them, the church then takes assignment of that clause, that contract, if they want, or if they say, no, we can do that ourselves, fine.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely in awe of of your concept about financing and how you're going to make this work. I think it's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Hamilton is an old industrial city.
Yeah.
It's tight down below. We're split longitudinally by the Niagara Escarpment, and below the escarpment is very tight.
Yeah.
That's why I developed my concept of a general density building that would fit on small city lots, because there just isn't the room in the lower city. However, in the upper city, and we're flatlanders, so the escarpment's only 250 feet high.
Yeah. The mountain, we call it.
But in the upper city, there's more room to do this kind of a project. I'm thinking particularly, Don, of Heritage Green.
Right. Yeah.
And they're in a very large lot indeed. I don't know whether it's as big as 5 acres, but it's certainly several acres.
Yeah.
And now this has a problem in that the congregation is failing. So, but at the same time, the Presbyterian Church stands behind it, so it may be of interest. So, and it's far too much land for the kind of thing. My concept was to build these small 12-story walk-ups like Model Ts that Henry Ford built, and build a whole hockey sock full of them, and make them inexpensive to build and affordable to rent. And I guess I have a preliminary suggestion. It's an ask. If we can't get our project through with the foundation we're working with now, I'd love to make a presentation to you folks about maybe adding this as an element of your portfolio.
It could possibly be a part of it, but we need the critical mass of what I've shown you to be financeable for everything to work. But if there's an extra acre there that is too small, for an additional joy building, of course we can look at that.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you.
I think I'll keep you in touch. And I mean, one of the questions, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to mention, is that the opportunities are going to be out in the suburbs, not in this dense old city.
Yeah.
Scott, Don, just quickly on that, Scott, the one that we're dealing with, the contract we have in Bracebridge, has got 2 joy buildings, 6-story there, and 38 bungalows, 38 adult lifestyle bungalows, because they're sitting on 14 acres. So, I said, sure, we can include it as part of it, because not everybody wants an apartment.
No, but quite frankly, if you're a small young family with a limited budget, the last thing you want to do to send the kids out to play is go up an 18-story or a 6-story elevator. It's nice for the kids to be able to run down the stairs and play.
Not at all. Yeah. No, we for sure we can talk about it.
Yeah. Well, no, Ian, like in the set of questions, there was one about whether this can be adapted to the first-time buyers, which is a huge problem now. But at this point, no.
What would have to
the scale.
happen is, the church out of their cash flow would have to separately build a family building.
Right.
Because the family building has to be all fall under CMHC's affordable rents, etc. Whereas our independent living model, it's not rocket science. The rates, although our rates are half of what the market is, the rates are still higher than a normal affordable apartment building, family-wise. So if we were just to do a family building at the current rates, the numbers won't work.
Right. You've got a model that does work, and that's
And while we acknowledge there's certainly a lot of marginalized and even at-risk demographics, and we know Gen X, Gen Zs, they're coming up next, but when we really look at the landscape of seniors housing and what's being offered and
Yeah,
the various
that's
positions many of them are in, and even if they sell the big house and get equity out of that, it doesn't last long with a lot of the pricing of the options that are out there for them.
great. So that's the critical. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I look at, and they're having trouble filling the buildings now because there's not that
Yeah.
many people that can afford 6,000 or 7,000 a month.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's a paradox. People are starving for real estate, and there's all this vacancy in these seniors
Condos.
That's why
affordable
we're
living
doing
places.
this. Our rates are less than 50% of the ones that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the certainly putting Scott in touch with Brian, and I guess Ian also, Christian Stanley. I don't know if there's persons in your area that would be interested in having a presentation from Ian and David in terms of the concept, because you're you've been also busy in the States as well. I say you've got experience there for development, so it's a good discussion to have, I would think.
Yeah, well, I love the US. I've always loved it. Especially
Where you get things,
especially
yeah.
love it right now.
Yeah.
So our president loves Canada too, at least in some ways.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
some
as
people
the
would question that.
51st state or 52nd.
He keeps it well hidden.
Yeah, that's it. But that was just as an aside, that was an amazing memorial service.
Oh yeah.
That was quite
Wonderful.
important. So something's happening. There's certainly a resurgence of Christian faith in aspects, particularly in the universities, which at least I don't know about Canada,
But it's needed.
but it's significant that that's going on in the universities, I think, for the future.
I'd
But,
love us to get behind some of these concerts, like at some
Yep.
point, because they really, they're really getting popular. And
Yep.
you have to be careful, obviously, that it is
For sure. Yep.
the right gospel. But
Yep.
there's so much opportunity to grow the next generation. There really
I
is.
think so. Yeah.
Wow.
And it seems churches, if that they catch the vision, can have a real leadership role here, teaming up with yourself and with your team, because you've really had the experience.
Yeah, and a lot of those students can help in these joy buildings, when
Right.
they really understand that that's the purpose in life.
Okay.
Chris,
Yeah, the idea of the community hub, I think, has immense potential in terms of it breaks down the isolation and loneliness, which is a real killer, isn't it?
Right.
You're part of a community, and there's all sorts of various kinds of learning and just helping out, tutoring older people, helping young kids with their studies, all sorts of possibilities there.
Yeah, well, I'm, I get more excited about it the more that we can speak about it, and actually,
Right.
The doors seem to be opening, but we've never had a bankruptcy, pay corporate or personal. And
Right.
part of the reason for that is the background of a chartered quantity surveyor. I might be a bit of a visionary, but I'm a line
You're a visionary with your
our pro
on
forma
ground.
is 900 lines long.
Wow, it's an amazing gift, and it's great that as David's in position to carry on the vision. When you will never retire, but you can go to one of those units.
David sometimes preaches that he's on church, so he's even ahead of me.
So I think I've got some of the information that you've shared with me, Ian and David. I can share that certainly with our group here and others. But I guess what the best way is to get the word out. Obviously, working through the church networks is probably the best way. And to an extent, right now it seems like the Pentecostal church here in Canada, that network is one that's most vibrant in terms of these concepts.
That's right.
And Scott,
Yeah, how close is the Brantford project to reality? Is that getting close?
No, that's Brian's church's project, and the land, they did not own the land, and we always say the same thing. What we are looking for is a church with land, because we don't have to buy the land, and that
Yeah.
helps in the affordable
Yeah.
rents, etc.
Huge.
But
We don't-
Brian's,
Yeah.
he didn't have one, so they identified one, and I said, well, we'll help you go after it if you want, but you
Yeah.
have to buy it. So, and you have to have it conditional for the approvals, the municipal approval. Well, the seller gave 9 months, and we were getting all the way through them, but the seller refused to give an extension. So, I said to Brian, you got to cancel that and get your deposit back, which you did.
Good.
Well, that's good. There is a church in Waterloo, I think, Ian and David, I would like to introduce you to. I think they've got a school. They're actually developing also part of the Christian Hall's approach to developing a Christian Hall there. And
Love to.
they have got a very vibrant community growing, and I think they have land as well. So this might be a good place. In fact, I'll see if I can facilitate that conversation, introduce you.
That would be great. We've actually got a meeting in Waterloo in the end of August or third week, something like that. So
Yeah.
we don't mind traveling that close, but one of the churches is in Newfoundland. And I said, well, when you, we'll come there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Halls International.
Yeah, with that's certainly a project, and you've been at a couple of presentations as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
has some immense potential. They are in discussion with Redeemer and other people, so I think there is a place for that whole initiative,
Yeah.
which really encourages the church to reclaim its role in education, in the formative education of students, and keeping them in the community. Nick Ellis is the big guy that's.
And by the way, Don, we've got a referral contract with anybody that brings churches that become a project.
Okay.
So that other people can, share in the largesse too.
Yeah. Well, I know that every time I hear the presentation, it becomes more exciting. And a really grounded visionary. You've got your feet on the ground, but your vision is very, very powerful. And as you talk, I do think that the Jacob Raum is the pastor. I will put you in touch with him, and I'll share with him the conversation that we've had here. And I think there may be some real possibility because they own land and they're looking to buy some more land as well.
All we need is a Google Earth outline of the property lines and the address, and we'll check the zoning and whether a building fits, etc., etc. No charge initially.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, and
Good. Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, just saying that it's worth a chat with our presbytery too, and
Exactly.
because we don't have as a presbytery, we don't have a proper real estate planning group. They're just forming one now. But,
Right.
This is a huge opportunity for and presbytery represents, I don't know what, 50 or 60 churches in
There's a lot of
this
property.
broader area.
We can in fairly short order look at those 50 and identify 5 or 10 that we would look at getting involved with.
Well, I think that's good, Scott. I'll connect you with Ian and David. That way you could follow up. With that. That would be excellent.
Scott, sorry, is that a Presbyterian church?
Yeah, we're St. Cuthbert's Presbyterian.
Okay.
And the governing body over us is the Presbytery of Hamilton, which reaches out actually quite a ways.
Okay, well, tell them I'm from Glasgow.
Yeah.
Well,
we got a lot of
Well, you're excused. My family's from South Queensbury.
I knew Ennis was Scottish, but,
yeah.
But I at least sound Scottish.
It was my great grandfather that came over, so I've only got a trace.
Yeah. Well, you can't mistake where you've come from, Ian. David's different. You haven't picked up the accent.
Well, he puts out a good Scottish accent when he has to.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, look, other questions? Otherwise, I'll send all the additional information.
Yeah, do that.
Good.
And then I think follow up with Scott. I'll do with the group in Waterloo, and then Christian Stanley within your context. I think,
We'll explore and we'll let you know.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
Ian
please.
and or Dave would be glad to do a similar Zoom presentation if you've got a group there. Say, well, what's this really all about? I think that would be
That's
very
what we
helpful.
usually do. Just a 1 hour Zoom to the board or the pastor to begin with. And
Yeah.
if he feels led that, yeah, let's take a look at this, then
Yeah.
we can have another Zoom with the board and
Right.
answer all their questions. And we
Right.
send out about 3 or 4 files so that
Right.
people see initially. Columbus is, they're really, putting in place new incentives for affordable housing. And it was them that reached out to us. So,
Columbus,
Wow.
Ohio.
we've
Yeah.
given them 7 churches to have a look at.
Wow. Exciting.
If for sure. For us aging boomers, yeah, sure.
And that's not going to change. I mean, I know who my boss is,
Yeah.
and so does David.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. The CEO
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Any last questions before we wrap here? I do thank you again, Ian and David, for your visionary leadership and the fact that you've really have proven results that are gaining traction.
I'm always excited to meet people that have vision and detail, because that's what you have to have, right?
That's the
Practice,
work.
practice
Yeah.
and vision, both. Yeah.
Yeah. My saying is no financing, no project.
That's
Does that?
that's for sure.
We
And
really appreciate the votes of encouragement from you all, and just in return, I just want to commend you, Don, and
Yeah.
Dean for what you do with the Oak Study Center and
Sure.
the focus there, because I tell you, it's palpable how much spiritual resistance there is against the Christian worldview, and so
Yeah.
all what you guys are doing to
for sure.
counterbalance the
Yeah.
having an education and resourcing and conversation through that Christian lens, I think is just very
Yeah.
very needed more now
Yeah,
than ever.
well done, David.
For sure.
Let's
Appreciate
get
that,
the
David.
holy boldness going. David, do you
Yeah.
want to close in prayer?
Yes, please. Would you like to? Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, Father, we thank you. We thank you for this opportunity to come together, albeit not in person, but certainly together in one accord and spirit. And we thank you that we can all join together, knowing you as Lord and Savior. And we just want to thank you for the freedom to be able to talk about things of you. We pray that you would just bless all we've talked about today, and just help
Yes.
us to reflect on different ways that
Amen.
we can all just be looking for synergy here for
Amen.
act for your kingdom. We know that the sickness in society is so rampant now, and as Christians, we're the ones with the vaccine, Lord. So help us just to look for ways that we can share that in a meaningful way, and that may look a lot of different ways. So we just we need your guidance, we need your clarity, and we pray that you would just help us all, keep us all encouraged, and may it all be for your glory. We pray that you would bless Don and his team's efforts there with everything they're focused on, and just may your light shine, Lord, in this world, we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks.
Well, I think
Thanks,
this is true the case. There were 2 or 3 or 5 or 4 gathered together. God is present.
Yeah.
And great conversation. And I'll send the recording will be available shortly. And there is also the AI notes for what it's worth. You can check them
Yeah,
out.
good. The ones
Thank you, Don.
the ones that missed it don't know what they missed.
I know. We'll get them. I'll poke a number of them. And Scott, there were a number of people in Hamilton I was very looking to get a hold of, so we might pursue some of those connections. And
Yes, yeah. Let me noodle on what the most logical ones are to pursue first.
excellent.
Super. Thank you,
you've got
gentlemen,
them.
for your time.
Thank you.
All right, blessings, everyone. And
Great.
That's
Christian
blessed
Stanley,
down in the US there.
yeah. Yeah, right. We got good representation from US and Canada, straddle the
Good.
border. Christian
Okay.
and Stanley, I've known them for over 50 years. We were students together in Toronto, but they're well positioned within a PCA church
Wow. Yeah.
in the Washington area, quite a large church. So I think there may be some good connections there. It always helps to have I mean, it's such a visionary concept. It takes a couple of goes for people to get their
Sure.
minds around it. I think you
Yeah.
do a good job, in the material there. So
Thank you.
it's very, very helpful. But I think we'll keep the conversation going, and a couple of key connections. Scott's really on this. He's very much been thinking about this. I think is well connected with the churches here as well. And I'll be in touch with Brian. Brian has been, we've got a group called City Vision Hamilton, which is really an extension of the idea of the city group, bringing the churches together for the good of the city and what that looks like. So I think there's a lot happening there as well.
Okay, well, that sounds great, Don. You know, specifically, it would be good if Scott does provide the list of the
He will, yeah.
Presbyterian churches, because you know we'll have a look at them. You know, we can
Yeah.
do it fairly quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I will do that. Well, great to see you both. And it's hard to believe a year has passed, I think, since we last chatted. But all is good. God's at work. I mean, I think, you know, it is true with Charlie Kirk and what's going on there. It's huge, huge.
Yes. Agreed.
Canada seems to be a bit resistant at this point because we don't have the same level of kind of understanding, perhaps in some areas, the media's. But I think that was a powerful, powerful service. And remarkable that the president and his cabinet, key people, spoke real gospel.
Oh,
It was, you know, like that. It was good. Marco Rubio and what he, you know, just it was amazing. I never imagined I would see that in my lifetime.
Right, right.
And here it is. So I think a big revival is on the way.
Yeah.
And this is the
Hopefully
first
that's the spark.
fruits. All right. Well, thank you both. And we'll keep in touch and I'll follow up with you and make sure you get those connections.
Right. And
All
could
right.
you send the recording, please?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Will do.
No
Okay.
hurry.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. God bless.
Yeah. Blessings, Elsa.